Good afternoon once again, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. Today's session is a consultation on visioning for 2047, identifying emerging priorities and strengthening collaboration for resilient India. So we have several experts lined up for the consultation, and we look forward to a very engaging session. Without any further delay, I would like to invite Ms. Nupur Tyagi to set the context for this session. Ms. Nupur has been working on various facets of disaster resilience for the past 5 years through the Sphere India network and is currently looking after program development and strategic partnerships of Sphere India. Over to you, Nupur.
Thank you so much, Michelle. Firstly, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Fair India and especially the Secretariat team, it is my pleasure to welcome you for this important consultation. Today, as you may know, that we commemorate 22 years of Sphere India, which we celebrate as Sphere India Day. We want to take this moment to not only reflect on our journey of last 2 decades, but also envision the road ahead. With this in mind, we plan today's consultation as an opportunity for us to build on our past learnings and also strengthen our collaborative efforts going forward. And of course, chart a way for more resilient future for the country. So that's the theme of today's consultation, Visioning for 2047, as we'll reach 100 years of independence, how we can envision more sustainable and resilient India. You may know that Sphere India has been at the forefront of humanitarian response and now DRR for over 2 decades now. And over the years, we have evolved from an initiative that very initially focused on sphere standards and subsequently on interagency coordination to now a very robust multi-stakeholder platform that brings together different stakeholders that include civil society organizations working in India, international and national NGOs, government agencies, academic institutions, corporates and CSRs, and also local stakeholders and networks. So our efforts, they have always been guided by the core principles of accountability, collaboration, and localization. And in 2025, we will be concluding our ongoing strategic cycle and will be stepping into a new strategic cycle. And currently, we do recognize that there are challenges ahead which are actually evolving, and especially when we are looking at climate change and emerging risk complex in the country, it definitely demands a more integrated and a forward-thinking approach. So this is why today's consultation is very critical. In today's discussions, we will be talking about identifying the emerging priorities and also critical challenges, while the experts and resource persons today will also present some practical recommendations to enhance disaster resilience across various themes like climate adaptation, inclusion, amongst others. And we hope that from today's consultation, we are able to further strengthen collaboration across our Sphere India network to build a more resilient and prepared country. So today's consultation will not just be deliberating on these things, but we also look forward to co-create solutions that will help us kind of develop or shape our collective future. And we hope that the outcomes from these discussions, they will directly contribute to shaping Sphere India's and the network's long-term strategy and visioning. And we want to make sure that our strategies remain responsive, inclusive, and impactful. So with that context and with that background, I would like to first invite Dr. Bhanu Malj. Most of us know Dr. Bhanu as a tropical medicine expert, and he's also
thank you, Nupur. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so just quickly introducing Dr. Bhanu for others who may not know him. So he has been in the sector of disaster risk reduction and response for last 30 plus years, and he's founder of a local NGO called Purvanchal Gramin Vikas Sansthan, which was established in 1987. He's also member of the advisory committee of UPSDMA and the convener of UP State Interagency Group. He currently is also serving on Sphere India board as the chairperson. So Dr. Bhanu, we are pleased to have you join us, and we would like to invite you to briefly share your insights on Sphere India's 2 decades long journey and also reflect on long-term visioning for 2047. Over to you, Dr. Bhanu.
Thank you, Nupur. I think, as you already mentioned, am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible. it's
Yeah,
possible
yeah.
for you to
I'm
switch
not
on your video.
opening.
We'd love to see you also.
I'm not opening my video because these signals are very low here.
Oh,
But
that's all right,
anyway,
sir. Yeah.
I'm in the field. So, but very importantly, I think uh, the point you have raised today is very, very relevant, and it's a matter of great concern that while risks are growing and environmental situation, we are not able to cope up most often uh, with the environment, and the disasters are happening now. Very, very focused. Where I mean, we have to strengthen collaboration. We have to understand the priorities of community today. So, what I feel the importance, how community can be made resilient, and community can be made resilient by involving community in every sphere of initiatives or opportunity. Why we are focusing mostly on community? Because as you already said, that localization and many other mm, factors which are so relevant and so important are being neglected by community because they don't know what to do. They don't understand what are the risks. They don't know the climate change is impacting so much, and the future of our disasters and climate risk are so uh, great, so big that we need to uh, uh, make community understand. Sufferer is the first responder. We keep saying that, but I think all our participants should uh, bring it to their focus that how those communities which are fighting, which are struggling for their bread and for their livelihoods, and in these situations, how can they be strengthened? How can they be made resilient? How can they reduce the risk? All these things are very, very, I can say, mm, I mean, new for them. They know that when there is a problem, government responds and government supports, government provides relief. But the relief culture, which has already gone with our DM Act, uh, and last so many years, almost 20 years have passed with DM Act, and we are still facing difficulty as our documents say that, studies say that we are not able to identify the risk even after so many years of our strategic effort. So in that situation, technical integration, technology integration has to be mm, definitely part of our discussion. And at the same time, how to engage community, how to allow them to participate in the process is another thing which I think uh, we all must understand the need of it, and then the way how to move ahead. Because we all know that after so many years of our activity and initiatives, training, which is probably not stimulating people, which is not able uh, to make them not just understand, but participate also. They are maybe they are understanding, but they are not participating the way we need for reducing the risk and the emerging climate uh, variability, climate change. So all these things, I think they, if community can understand that, how can they be included? Because there are lots of uh, groups are there which are uh, excluded by default. So how the excluded by default can be uh, taken care of? How their socio-economic development can take place in such a way that this becomes their uh, way of life. I think previously when DM Act was being discussed in the initial days, we were just talking people that now there is a culture of difference. Our DRR should be in our culture. Risk reduction should be everywhere in all developmental processes. Now we need to see how our departments are uh, taking care of it, how they are including it in their all levels of planning and implementation. So these things are very important, and this tells us that how adaptive capacity uh, can be uh, enhanced. I think policies are planning. Uh, most often it is in place, but the implementation part of it, the community engagement part of it remains very, uh, uh, crucial, and at the same time, uh, it is not attended, it is not taken care of usually the way it should be. So I think keeping all these things, I'll not take time much for telling that what it is and how it should be done. All are learned people and uh, senior fellows. Co-traveler. We are co-traveler, rather we can say. Uh, we see all senior people here. So I think they can guide us how to take, they can guide Sphere, how to, what should be the role of Sphere India to take it forward, and probably uh, Sphere India is the only organization as of now which is taking care, uh, I can say, not just taking care, but providing environment and situation and educating people throughout the country, and at the same time preparing them for response and risk reduction both. So we need to have a futuristic thinking, futuristic plan, and I believe uh, since 2005, almost 20 years gone, and 22 years gone, as we are seeing Raising Day of Sphere India, 22nd Raising Day of Sphere India. So I believe we are in right track, and we have to keep uh, pursuing the community, the people, uh, the experts, and government also, and national, international agencies who are supporting the entire process to take it forward and make a resilient community as well. So I thank you for the mm, organizing this activity initiative and providing me an opportunity to talk about it. And I'll request all the participants to take it forward in such a way that we are really making some, we're able to make some impact. Uh, Continued effort of our impact uh, and do the needful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I could not open my camera because of low signal. But anyway, if I'm audible completely, uh, I think I have conveyed my uh, feelings, and please go ahead and take care of it. And let's understand that at the end of it, we reach to our objective and do needful whatever is to be done. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Nipur, for inviting
Uh,
me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhanu. And as chairperson of Share India, we really appreciate you setting expectations from us and also the network, and while also highlighting the need for putting community at the forefront. So this is something that we will definitely be considering while we are finalizing our strategy for the upcoming years. So thank you for that sharing, sir. We look forward to your direction and guidance as we move forward with our work. With that, I'll hand it over to the moderator for today's discussion. Michelle, over to you to take the discussion forward.
Thanks, Nupur, and thanks, Dr. Banu. Next, we have, I would like to invite Professor Anil Kumar Gupta, sir, PI and CEO, Integrated Center for Adaptation and Risk Resilience, IIT Roorkee. Over to you, sir, for your remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle and Nupur, the entire sphere, India, Altamas and Divyaji. Many people are here. And Banuji was speaking before me. First of all, my compliments for choosing this very important topic. I think this is very important because otherwise also the Sendai framework was for the period till 2030, and we have now around 5 years or so. So there are serious questions, and when we say serious questions, is it always very important that we start questioning ourselves? That is the best way, so that rest of the period we can utilize more effectively. Like when a racer is on the track and then he gets that okay, he has to cross 3 more kilometers and he has this much time, so he can manage his speed. And this is very important that from where we started in this journey of SFDRR, many things have changed. So it is not that the strategy of SFDRR was not correct or something has gone wrong. But actually, when we prepared SFDRR, it was based on the experience of Hugo framework of DRR. So say 2005 to 15. Now there are numerous new things which have emerged. For example, more and more black swan events, COVID, many other kind of disasters. Then systemic risk is now I would say that is the most important thing, that one disaster leading to other disaster. So these kind of things are emerging more. And climate change, which earlier there were some doubts also that whether it is reality or whether we should agree or not. So there is no doubt on this. And I'm very happy that you have invited me and ICARS to be part of this very important discussion. So I have 7 quick points here to share on this occasion. The first point is about the government of India's this unique initiative, which I am currently heading. This is ICARS, Integrated Center for Disaster Resilience, Adaptation, Disaster Resilience and Sustainability. Globally, we have agreed that adaptation is a new way of disaster risk reduction. And that is basically goes back to something that UNDRR was earlier known as UNISDR. And way back in 2004, it published a book that title was Living with Risk. So what is actually living with risk? That we learn to adjust with the situation which we cannot modify. And that is very much important, that to extent if we can prevent the disaster, it is perfectly fine. But in most of the cases, we find that disasters cannot be prevented. So we have to anticipate and we have to start preparing. And that is the kind of a resilience that we want to develop. And for this purpose, this center that is working on integration of adaptation, disaster management, and sustainability is important. Second point, loss and damage. So, loss and damage context, a lot of things are being discussed globally. But when it comes to India, the loss and context in India are little different from what we talk in the rest of the world. Maybe some of these aspects are common for South, both South, our South and that part of South also. Because developing countries perspective, where a significant proportion of loss and damage is the non-economic losses, where we cannot put a monetary value. For example, livelihood, for example, health, mental the loss of mental peace. These are the dimensions where we do not have the clear methodologies as even now. So that is very important area of intervention, to see that how do we capture these kind of loss and damage, which have very significant impact on the future resilience and future sustainability of the human society, but at present we are not able to capture, because the PDNA process also, we are coming up with excellent exercise, very good documentation, but how far the PDNA are being put into practice, are the outcome of PDNA towards a correct way of recovery. Many times the recovery programs are just limited to enabling the new infrastructure or the repair of certain past infrastructure. So that may not be considered as a complete picture of recovery. So that is the second part, that how do we look at the loss and damage, PDNA and recovery thing. The third aspect, that what happened earlier, the focus was more on emergency response, and then in the name of a paradigm shift, what we did, we started giving much more focus on uh, mitigation, then engineering based mitigation, certainly social based interventions or inclusivity, that was also been discussed. But see, when we talk about disaster management, emergency response will always remain a very very critical concern. How effectively we prepare in advance for effective emergency response, I think that is very important. So for that, the earlier models, like we say that in emergencies we need to call army, paramilitary, and now we have NDRF, and we used to have, and then various demands are coming from various parts of the country, that please place one battalion here also. I recall some recent experiences I visited, and they told me, please support us, and we are requesting government to place one battalion. I think that kind of approach may not always give the desired results. Rather, we have to bring a transformation of local capacity building and local resilience, because many disasters, especially the medium order and the lower order disasters, have a very very localized this thing, and many times the language barrier is also there, resources barriers are also there. So how do we come up with local systems? And when we say local systems or local governance, so there are two type of governance. It is not only that district administration or DDMA is the only the governance. There is a parallel social governance system also, where people to people connect, our family to family connect, our village to village connect, without even being prescribed by a government. So that kind of governance is also important. So I think this is a need that we come up with local disaster management localization models, and there are certain good models in India also, but those need to be studied, and how we can effectively replicate and scale up, and how the government mechanism can also be used for that, and maybe certain other fundings like CSR and other resources can also be seen. The third point I would like to bring, that when we talk of resilience, we are talking from disaster point of view. If you talk to the climate fraternity, they will talk of climate resilience. While the extremes are of common concern, climate extremes are for concern for us as a disaster, climate extremes for of concern to them as the aberrations in the climatic patterns. But resilience is not limited to this. The health adaptation fraternity, our health people, will also talk of the health resilience. Then there are food security and many other issues also. At ground level, say district level, and down the line, village level, city level, this compartmentalization of various plans also has to be looked at. How do we integrate these plans? For example, we have one plan for disaster management, one plan for climate change, other plan recently. So, Supreme Court has asked that all the district come up with environmental action plan. So how we can have integration of these plans, I think that is also very important. The fifth point I would touch, that we take example of a home, any kind of a housing. There are various risks. Earthquake is a risk, for the building if the building is not earthquake resistant. But same building may be resilient, may be prone to urban flooding also. If it is a high wind area, it may be prone to winds also. So how do we look not only multi-hazard? We have started talking about multi-hazard. I think we have to go a little beyond that. The person who are living in that building or house may also have the risk of short circuits, fire, may also have the risk of electrocution. So what I want to say, that if we really want to work on promotion of safety culture for disaster management, so basically we have to work for total safety. So safety from everything, whether it is animal bite, whether it is diseases, whether it is accidents, and then disasters. So when the safety would be the first thing in our mind, then people will start thinking about prevention more proactively, and the burden of relief and response will be reduced. The sixth point, the conventional thought process of disaster management has to undergo a drastic, but not, we don't have much time, but a drastic change. Why drastic change? Now, if we just see past 2 years, before 2 years, the drones were not permitted. Now drones are permitted. I think that brings a great revolution. I am just telling one example. So how disruptive technology can put into practice, and that can do both the things, enabling and disabling both. Enabling is that we can reach to difficult areas, we can pass on materials to difficult in difficult terrains when the roads are washed away or the landslide has blocked the road. We even now we are thinking that our responders can be carried by drones and to a certain weight, so those kind of testing are also there, then relief material and many things. But how disruptive technology is creating a challenge also, that now in the social setting, that is affecting the social cohesion. People are connected from each other to each one to other person more by the electronic gadget rather than in person. So both kind of disruption has to be seen: social disruption and technological disruption. And then we revisit our disaster management models. And the last point I would touch, that disaster management plans in India also have a highly undulating terrain. You will find same plan of district. One place you will find 80-page document, and other district you will find 400-page document. Which is correct? So basically, we need to work on the planning models also, that plans should be handy, but plans should not be devoid of the correct information or the important information. So how to come up with the new approaches where handy and operational plans are there. Plans are not too literary. So that is also something that is very important. And then maybe in electronic form also. Can a plan there in the form of an app, that the entire plan, all the information is available with district collector, SDM, and other officers, and it is in the app? And so, can it be thought like that? I think it's not very difficult. It can be thought of. And the last point, that the government of India has taken very important initiative of establishing a network that is called address network. We are happy that that job has been assigned to us. Adaptation, disaster resilience, environment and sustainability network. Why? Because there are a lot of commonalities among these things. Many environmental challenges are now emerging as disasters. Air pollution has emerged as a air pollution extremes as a health emergency. Then various other dimensions also there. Disasters are also taking new form. Sometimes the extreme wind also becomes a challenge. Heat is a new challenge. So how the various discipline experts and also the institutions which are working on these areas should have a regular connection. So this address network, which will also come up with a portal, and which will weave in all SDMAs, which will weave in all climate change centers of the state governments, the expert institutions on disaster management, expert institutions on climate change, and certain specific thematic institutions, so that whatever research is being taken by people, that is translated into simpler language quickly, so that the people in practice, civil society, they can take the benefit. And also the civil society can also share their feedback if something is not properly working, or something, some good idea comes with them. I'm very happy that the Sphere India is our natural partner, a long term partner, and excellent network Sphere India has. And this topic that was chosen for today's discourse, I must compliment the entire team and all other speakers also. Thank you very much for this opportunity for me to share some of my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Anand, for sharing such pertinent points. Next, we have Ms. Ruchi Chaudhary from Climate Action Network South Asia and also board member of Sphere India. Over to you, Ruchi, for your remarks on strengthening risk reduction and climate resilience.
Yeah, hello. Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for this opportunity. And congratulations again from my side too to Sphere India for celebrating your 22nd year, and also starting this conversation on a very important topic. My two previous senior delegates have already made my things easier, as many of the things that I wanted to share has already been shared. But the thing that I'm going to add within this is just a bit of a gender perspective. So I have a presentation to show. In case, can I share the screen?
Yes, please.
Just a second. Okay. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So, Anilji has already given quite an emphasis on the fact that it's a multi-pronged issue. It doesn't only talks about risk reduction or the disasters. It's also related to climate change, which are causing these disasters. And as we are all aware that climate change is really bringing in disasters which are much more frequent, much more intensified, and most of the energy of all our people working in the field is going into really reducing the impacts. But to reduce these impacts, I think one of the things that we really need to keep in mind is also the whole idea of adaptation, the idea of who is really vulnerable, who is most at risk, and how do we really bring in most people aware of the situation so that the impact, overall impact of the disasters whenever it comes or hits is reduced. So with that, this is the first thing I want to bring light to. We all are aware of the rising temperatures. We know the heat waves are hitting hard. India, Pakistan, in the last 2 years, in fact, last 4 or 5 years, we are seeing increasing trend of the heat waves. But who really faces the first brunt? And again, it's women, where it's the household chores, the quality of life that they have. Even we say urban areas are becoming heat islands. But even within those heat islands, working in front of the stoves in further heat, exposing them to more smoke and other things is something that has a direct impact on women. And if in a disaster situation, which is maybe a slow onset happening over a period of time, but right now it's really impacting more women in the situations. We are talking about extreme weather conditions in terms of flooding, droughts at one place, and again, the impact as the resource managers of the home. Who is at the end, the water, who has to take further 20 steps down to get those waters. So whether it's a hilly terrain, whether it's any other thing, health is impacted, the whole body, of the women is impacted, and at the same time, many of the women really suffer uterine prolapse as well, where it is intense pressure on their lower body causing further reproductive health issues. Glacial melting, which is showing the impact of rivers and the reduced water and scarcity. And whenever these flooding and things come, the shelters in which the women goes, the crowdedness, the issues, the undignified living conditions. So these are other further impact, further risks which women get exposed to in a situation where it is more of a shelter, but at the same time, her specific needs are not addressed when we are talking about the risk management. Sea level rise. Now, again, in the sea level rise in the coastal areas, we have seen that there is increased salinity, there is reduced production of fishery, there is reduced production of the sea products, and there is extended time of women who are the fisherwomen spending in water. And again, their lower body is more exposed to water at a longer duration, leading to, again, reproductive health issues, skin diseases, which are rampant and somewhere not addressed when we are talking about all these disasters. So if we see each of these things at the global scale, these are bigger things, but end of the day, the last receiver and the most vulnerable and risk factor comes somewhere to the women. Now, disaster management, again, is a cross-border issue. You can look at borders which are subnational, you can look at national, you can look at international. So people are moving. Disasters are becoming such a big, at such a high intensity that people are flowing from one area to the other, at whether temporarily or sometimes for, as a full-time thing. It has been estimated that in South Asia will be the second largest continent where there will be most mobility happening in terms of domestic migrants. And we really need to see how we restrict this movement. And that is where the risk reduction, whether it is to address the economic prosperity in terms of livelihood options which are available or which are reducing when people are in their own vicinity. How do we look at these governance mechanisms so that people can be trapped or they can, really live the life they had been living and they don't have to leave everything and move to another place. So reducing the risk of this displaced community, everybody gets impacted, the entire family. Men move, after some time they get the families too, but each of them have their own risks when they move out of their own community setup. Now, when the movement happens, everybody has a identity issue. Professor Anil was also touching upon non-economic loss and damages. And these non-economic loss and damages are further, you can see, exacerbated when we look at the situation of women and children. There is increased safety concerns because there is no safety net when they move to a terrain where they do not have their own people around. There are undignified living conditions. There is no privacy. The psychological trauma of actually living and seeing a disaster in front of them, then being displaced from their own homes, and then living in a condition which is completely open and doesn't provide any privacy, which at least for adolescent girls, women, is somewhere a basic need. Fear of leaving their own community, their heritage, their identity, fear of dropping out from the community safety net, and increased health problems, like I already shared, the reproductive health issues, which becomes much more as the girls and women, they are exposed to a open community, and a compromised education and a recreational space for children, completely ruining their development as a whole. So what do we really need when we are talking about reducing risk management or reducing the risk? And I think we need to look at adaptation, like my previous speakers definitely gave quite stress upon, that we cannot think of disaster management as we used to. When the disaster is there, we start responding. We start acting upon it. It is more to do with how we reduce those impacts. And so we need a holistic approach that combines adaptation, mitigation action, and at the same time, look at all of these things from a gender and intersectionality lens, because each age group, each sex, gender, the people, disabled people, so different time of people, I have different challenges when they are exposed to a disaster, or the risks that they face are very different. So we have to address it in a totality. And therefore, my focus is that when we are talking about strengthening risk management, it requires a gender lens, because whenever the disaster happens, when we talk about climate crisis, they are not gender neutral. Women and girls are exposed to issues and challenges which are much different compared to boys and men. And any intervention that we plan to address the adaptation in a community should look at a gender analysis, how each person is affected and how each can be provided a proper risk management tool. Now, how do we operationalize it? So I'm just going to now skip, because my main thing was, when we are talking on disaster risk management, we must take into consideration the issues of women who are mostly out when we are talking about preparedness. So they are more into the, whether it's a drought situation, whether it is a flood situation, women are the last one to move or leave the house when any problem comes. So how do we engage them at the time of preparation? How do we see that when we are talking about adaptation requirements, they are the ones who are helping and are also given capacity, they are invested in, so that they are able to contribute towards rebuilding resources within their own community. They are the real decision makers also to see what will work, so that these whole issues of resource management that they have been doing will really function for that particular village, where exactly the issue or the problem lies. Sorry. So when we are talking about adaptation, we are talking at first identifying and planning on the what is the exact hazard, whether it's floods, droughts, wildfires. We are talking about sustainable land and water management. And I think whenever we are talking about natural resource management, it's the women in the home who is actually managing them. So their participation in the entire planning process becomes very crucial. They are practicing of the ecosystem-based approaches, managing the wetlands, the forests, the mangroves in the coastal sites, which becomes the natural buffers. So how these women, this community can be actually there as the hands and legs to really build their own village as a more resilient by managing and sustaining their own natural resources. Economic resilience and livelihood diversification. We cannot, completely do a 360-degree turn to climate change impacts. Weather conditions, weather patterns are changing. Agriculture may not be the only, it can be maybe a temporary solution to livelihoods which continues, but we need to look at the livelihood diversification. And that includes supporting small-scale farming, that includes supporting women farmers, agroforestry, enterprises in an urban sector, and also sometimes strengthening the supply chain, because they may have a raw material as a whether agricultural product or as a some kind of enterprise that they engage in. But how do we make it linked to the market so that it gives the livelihood options where we can see men and women both being stabilized within a community, and they're not migrating because of the less opportunity of viable options. And community participation, which becomes a crux, because whenever we are talking about adaptation, we need to see the local knowledge, the indigenous knowledge, which will only work well. Next is on the mitigation part. We need to see that there are restricted, the policies are very stringent on high development and a risk kind of a development which is happening in urban areas. Infrastructure resilience is also important, and disaster preparedness must include the preparation of women who should be able to, mentally prepare to leave the home when the disaster comes, and is not the last one to just take care of everything and fall prey to any disaster situation. Policy, when we are talking about policies, I think we have them in place. There's a lot of government incentives and work going on. Climate action plans are there. Gender action plans are also there. But I think still we are lacking in implementation because of the budget allocation that is done for them. So how do we really see that the investment in women and their capacity building to address and to be able to feel resilient when any risk arrives, they are able to contribute to it? We need to strengthen the collaboration, because each person has its own role, each institution has its own role, government has a role to play, civil society has a role to play. So how each player contribute towards this building a more resilient community. And financing, climate adaptation and DRR must look at gender budgeting as well. When we are talking about risk assessment, since women and children are at high risk, how do we look at the budgeting aspect there? So my key takeaways from the presentation that I want to focus on are that any kind of a rapid and slow onset disasters, they are definitely growing and we need urgent action. There is an integrated risk management required and gender just solutions. They are key to building the resilience. Future ready strategies in terms of nature-based solutions, which will provide a long-term resilience are needed. And we need to collaborate locally, nationally, as well as at global levels. And investment at local level is a key. We really need to invest in the local capacities, work with them to be able to make the village or any urban area more climate resilient and risk reduced. Thank you.
Thanks, Ruchi, for highlighting differential vulnerabilities and integrated risk management. Next, we have Mr. Sumed Patil, Manager Disaster Response from Tata Sustainability Group, to share more about climate change and disaster resilience on building future-ready systems. Over to you, Sumed.
Yeah, thank you so much, Michelle, for giving this opportunity to interact with such a great pool of experts. And this consultation is very rightly placed. And first of all, congratulations to the team for such a long journey and moving ahead. While we wish you to be more strengthened and support a lot of stakeholders in the disaster risk reduction related activities. The points that as disaster risk reduction professionals, are looking at and finding it difficult to take up the agenda of, say, for example, Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction, or uh, the planned activity which we mentioned in say, district disaster management plan, is that when we try to implement the DRR measures or take the DRR measures on the field, say for example, maybe in a school which is in a landslide prone area, or a school which is in congested areas, or say a training center which is there. So while implementation of this DRR measures, which we intend to take it locally, the problem that we faced is we needed different set of methodologies to include the participations of the community. I heard Rajendra sir's very well put it that we need to increase the participation of the community for in the disaster risk reduction approaches. I speak from a place where we are looking forward that our CSR projects include some aspects of disaster risk reduction, which means that we are trying to allocate certain budget to undertake the disaster risk reduction activities. So, 2 points are set here. One is we are ready to invest into DRR at local level. With this, the issue that we look up for, or we are facing right now, is a how to conduct a risk assessment at a local level. That includes where the community is participating in risk assessment actively. They understand the multi-hazard risk reduction approach, and also they are risk literate in terms of discussing the risk. So when the ownership is with the community, we can come up with a accurate risk that can be mapped, and then we can work around the DRR measures to be implemented on the field. So that's one. So how to increase the method participation of the community by making them more risk literate, and are there, the question number two is, are there any methodologies where we put in say 100 people in a village to go through and then assess the risk that we can address further? Is there a methodology to do that? Or is it dependent on the, yeah, of course, PRA is there, we do transit walk in the cities, we do mapping of the cities. All that things have said and done, but using the technology, using drone technology, using WhatsApp group, can this process be made more participatory in terms of getting the vulnerable communities or marginalized communities, women to participate more into the risk identification mechanism and also be a part of devising what DRR measures can be taken up in that region. So there, I think a lot of investment has been done by the government and the technical institutions into devising a institutional mechanism where we have correct institutions in place, say till the district level or until the taluka level as well. But when we are investing in terms of, say, for example, CSR projects, so we invest into a local level, say for a hospital or a village or two, three villages. So at that level, what exactly are the risk may be different. Maybe the disaster DDMP may say talk about another risk, and this cluster of four villages may talk about another hazard totally. So that can be a different thing. How to bring that to the table that all of us agree on that hazard is present in this area, and even after identifying the hazard, as Rajendra sir rightly said, there is a need that the technical understanding of from the institutions who are working in research and other how can that information come down to that level where it can convert into a implementable or actionable project, where which can be funded, which can be then monitored, which can have clear cut deliverables of intervention, which can have uh, methodologies of implementing it, and also the technical support required. So, A, how to increase the participation using the technology and make sure that the local risks are identified correctly. Secondly, if there are fundings available from public or private players who are willing to invest into the disaster risk reduction, is there a platform of technical experts and the government who can identify the activities at local level, which will have an impact on the society, positive impact on the society. So that stakeholders platform where, say, an expert from an agricultural university who is aware of the local area is working with the DDMA and also is able to suggest the DRR interventions required, say for example in a village, so that we straight away fund those intervention and the communities can be benefited or resilience can be built up in the community. So something of that sort, which is a stakeholders platform at local level is important, and Sphere India being engaged into very critical resources can certainly plan in their strategy how to bring that expertise on a local level where implementation and investment in DRR can be done. Thirdly, where we see a lot of technology is coming up. Sir spoke about drone technology. Sir spoke about GIS technology. All these things are also readily available, but for each and every project to invest into these technologies and this collect the data separately is difficult. So if the data or the data bank of risk is there at district level or at village level, it becomes easier to get authentic data which can be helpful to work around, and their technology can be useful. So we had a very good experience while working with Sphere India during Wayanad landslide, and we have seen how grave that landslide was. It was a bone-chilling experience, certainly, to having seen that scenario. It makes a serious case for investing into local preparedness and local risk reduction measures, whereas as many of the CSRs are ready to invest, and we have issued a guidance note specifically to invest in DRR as a in CSR project. So, but the necessity is that bringing all this together, Sphere India can play a major role, as it is very well connected with the national level authorities and the training institutes, state level authorities and training institutes, and other training experts. So these are my points. I'll stop here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Tata Sustainability Group. Thank you.
Thanks, Sumit, for highlighting building local capacities for disaster preparedness and resilience building, and also mainstreaming disaster risk reduction across all CSR projects. We'll take your suggestions into account. Next, we have Ms. Divya Gupta, Associate Director, Advocacy and Partnerships from SEEDS. Divya, over to you for your sharing on strengthening local capacities and community-led humanitarian action.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me for this session. And congratulations entire Sphere India team and Secretariat and all the members, including us. We are also a member for this good work happening in last 23 years. And now we reached to this level where we are completing GRNS within few hours. And we are going for the URS matrix, and we all are working on the same, the social sector plan. So it's a very big achievement. So I would like to start talking about how in the field level and the community level, we can implement this local level interventions. So there are three key areas where I would like to, emphasize my discussion. Number one is, if we all experience in last 25 years, a lot of work has happened for the system strengthening. We have system, we have plans, we have entire infrastructure which support community during the disaster and go for the DRS. But there is a requirement at the community level for their empowerment, improving their information level, improving their knowledge, improving their capacity, and also provide them some kind of funds. My last colleagues also, they were last speakers also, they were sharing about the same thing. It is important to provide them some kind of flexible kind of fund which they can utilize for their improving their capacity, and also for the preparedness, doing the preparedness among the community members. And it is very much important to Gupta sir has also shared that now it is not about the big emergencies. We are not just dealing every time like tsunami or Orissa super cyclone or Gujarat earthquake. Every year we are dealing a 20 plus or sometimes even more than that small emergencies happening because of this climate induced emergencies. There are flash flood happening due to cloudbursts. There are thunder storm, and there are lightning. When extreme heat waves are there every year, in last year also we have experienced, and as per the forecast, this year also it is going to be very warm. So how a local level community can deal, especially those who are living at the last mile, especially those who are migrant laborers, they are living in a really pathetic situation, how they can handle. So for that, we can discuss how we can do this kind of next. Yeah. So already, Gupta sir and Bhanu sir already emphasized on the same things, but I will try to repeat it, and will try to give some examples from our field also. Like there is a growing challenge of climate-induced disasters. There are localized emergencies happening, maybe within few villages, like we have seen in Uttarakhand, because of the cloudburst, a flash flood is happening. By the time outside people reach, things are, completely beyond control. So if the local level task force can be trained, and they can go for they can go for the life-saving support to the community, it can protect the life, and it can also reduce the time for providing them the relief support. Whatever kind of urgent emergency, urgent requirements are there, they can supply the urgent relief to these communities. And also, like these communities are all the time living there. Like there is a local support system, PRI members are there, grassroots functionaries are there, local self-help groups are there. How these people can convert into a service providers, like a relief providers. So this kind of requirement is there. And strengthening community-led preparedness. Those small NGOs, CBOs, they are working directly with the community on the daily basis. They are in a connection with the community. If we can make them disaster-ready organizations, like in our few of projects, we are also making the same efforts in the last 2.5 years. So if we can make them, we can make them disaster-ready organization, provide them information, provide them knowledge, build their capacity, build their knowledge, and also unlocking some kind of fund which they can utilize to protect the community, provide the support to the community. It will be reducing the time also, and it will be make sure to addressing unnoticed and unaddressed disasters, the small disasters. And digital platforms like Akshmi. In the last 2.5 years, we made a very good effort under the guidance of NDMA, and SDMAs are also supporting us in that. And our local partners, they are trying to building this platform. Actually, Abda Chati Vibran, this is a national loss platform where family is reporting their own urgent needs. They are reporting their losses, and this system is calculating their loss and urgent needs into the what kind of urgent relief they are requiring, and also what kind of relief actions are required, and who are those stakeholder can be chip in with these community to support in a future. Like there are 3 channels so far we established, and in future we will be establishing more channels where community can self-report their urgent needs. So within few hours of the emergencies, they can give their information ki this is my family profile, this is urgent needs my family is having, and these are the losses are happened to my family. So those losses can be calculated in the way of damage has happened to that family and what kind of impact can be happen in future to that family. So they can provide this information through the chatbot. There is a full-fledged IBRS system. They can just call on a given number, and they can receive just a missed call to that number, and they will be receiving a call. And if in case that call cut, it will be repeated in 3 times until or unless they complete their survey. And or in case they are having the smartphone, they can utilize a link and fill the entire form about their detail. And this is whole system is in local language. Like in the last time, we utilized this system in a real-time manner post cyclone Dana in West Bengal area, in the Sundarban area. And in the real time, within few hours, this entire data came to our system, and based on that data, our international donors, they provided a relief. And it was calculated ki which family is requiring the food kit, which family is requiring the hygiene kit, which family is requiring the unconditional cash, because not each and every family is requiring everything. Their needs are completely different. But that because we are not having family level data on the time, we sometimes we go for the blanket kind of relief. So it reduces the resources, it reduces the time, and it also, I mean, matchmaking kind of arrangement within the community and the service support provider. So and in the later stage, those data will be converted into their wallet, and this particular family's wallet, their entire detail will be there. Family will be updating their detail time to time. And in case, because in many, due to the climate situation, many areas are almost every year and twice in a year or thrice in a year, they are affected through some kind of emergencies. So in case next time when they will be suffered with any kind of emergencies, the last data can be utilized to reach to the family within that time. So this kind of digital system is required to support the family, connect that family with the right kind of support. So and equip local CVOs and NGOs, make them more disaster ready. They can prepare their own organization level system. They can be having the whole contingency plan within their organization. Who are the vendors to whom they can connect during the emergency to supply the bulk items? Where are the warehouse they can utilize, how they can write the right proposal, provide the appeals to the donors, and receive the funding on the time. So build their capacity and that level, and they will be further building the capacity of the local community members, like local leaders, self-help group, local volunteers, PRI members, and local support system. And Gupta sir was telling a very beautiful thing. I will also try to emphasize on that. Like our entire DM plans, whether it's a village level plan or district level plan or the state level plan, even the any department level plan, that plan and that detail or that SOP should be in a very simplified manner. People are not going to read the 40-80 pages document. Even we don't read. So how that can be simplified in just 10 or 20 points? Like if I am a child, I should know only those 10 items which can be protect myself. If I am a mother, how can I can protect my own family? If I am a farmer, I need only the information related to my agricultural land, how I can protect my land and my crop from upcoming disaster. So that kind of simplification in the plan, simplification is required. And in our early warning system also, like in last 10, 12 years, IMD has a tremendous job, a very good job. But now it is our job, our non-profit humanitarian organization's job to simplify that effort, that science, which already they are making to reach to the last mile. So whatever information they are providing, how we can simplify that information so it can reach to the last mile, or not just the information, with the action points also. If I am a farmer, what is the information and how I can utilize that information and what kind of action I should take this time. So this kind of simplification is required if we want local people to be part of action and make the action and make the decision making. And need for an encyclopedia. For last around 1 year, we are trying for this effort, and we developed a proper framework. How in India, encyclopedia, humanitarian encyclopedia can provide, because in India, we are having so many local languages, and not just the languages, even the dialects, even the way, even within one language, you can find 4 or 5 dialects. Within the UP, people, so few people are speaking Hindi, few people are speaking Bhojpuri, some few people are speaking Awadhi, Bundelkhandi. So many languages are there, so many dialects are there. So how that encyclopedia can be translated into those local dialects, local languages, so the local NGOs, local service providers, local community members, local leaders can utilize that information for their use, and make local people as a disaster manager to manage the disaster. Because if something will happen, other outsider will come after few hours, or maybe after 1 day, or maybe after few days, but my neighbor, my Anganwadi worker, and my other people will be here only, and they can immediately support me. Like if we, sir was talking about the drone. So it's a very good idea to provide self-help group, women self-help group the drone. So normal time, they can utilize those drone in our functions, ceremonies, marriages, and earn money from that. And during the emergency, they can utilize those drones to mapping and to monitor the area of flood or other emergencies. So this kind of things can be, and local wisdom is important. Like if you are going to provide some kind of interim shelters to community, what kind of climate is there, what kind of material is available, and what are their liking and disliking, the community's own way of living. So the fusion of those items is important. So Bhanu sir was also emphasizing the same thing, and I really appreciate Ruchi's way. She was talking more about the women and the other vulnerable group. Whatever their way of living, now we need to fuse, we need to integrate the entire system based on their way of living, and then only it will be successful. So this is how we should try it next. Yeah. So that sorry, someone is messaging something. Just give me 1 second. Huh? Okay, no, there's no message. So the direct funding for local organization, like how we need to make them skilled, how they can unlock the funding. There are a lot of funding available. There are a lot of knowledge available. There is a lot of technology available. But what is happening? Those who are smart, they are accessing to those fundings and those technologies. How the small organization directly working with the community can access to that fund, can unlock that fund to utilize. Mitigation fund is there. Our 15th Finance Commission budget is there, and there are so many local schemes where emergency related funds are available within the schemes. So how those the funds can be unlocked by the local community members and the local CBOs and NGOs, and how they can reduce their dependency on the outsiders. Like we want them to become like, in future they will say ki, we don't require you, we can handle by ourselves. We need to bring them at that level. So direct funding to local CVOs, NGOs, and local community members to utilize for there are committees at the village level. Those committees can handle those funds, and simplified procedure. Don't make jargons. Don't make the research kind of documents. The research kind of documents can be utilized for the researchers and the people, those who are working on at the decision making level. But for them, for the direct community members and those who are the practitioner, for them we need to provide the simplified solutions. And also the decentralize the governance. The person who is sitting at the national level, he or she can't make the decision for the last mile. So that last mile, local committees, local people should be enough empowered to make decision for themselves. And indigenous knowledge, people are having already a lot knowledge. They have jugaad, really a huge jugaad within their own system. Only we need to multiply those efforts and try to provide the solution based on those systems. And like flood forecasting, many times in the old time they used to understand from their animals behavior ki flood is about to come. And we heard like dogs, the dogs can understand if tsunami is coming. So local people have their way of knowledge there. So how we can integrate their knowledge with our communication system, and those both the efforts can be utilized, both the knowledge can be utilized for the betterment of community. And also leveraging the technology. I mean, it's a very funny thing, like people are utilizing technology for earning money. They are becoming the influencers, they are making the reels. Why don't we can use the technology for saving the lives of people? Why don't we can provide them the within last mile people? So many people we have found they are making reels. So why don't we utilize that knowledge for saving their lives, for providing them and providing them opportunity to report their own losses, report their own requirement, and based on that service can be provided to them, relief can be provided to them. So this is how I would like to make my points. Next, it is over. Yeah, so these are the recommendation I would like to give, because they are already covered during my points also, and during Gupta sir and Banu sir's and Ruchi's point also. Like, recognize local actors as an equal partner. It is not us or the national level actors those who are going to make the decision for them. They have capacity, only we need to provide them a platform and empowerment to make the decision. And invest in grassroots organization, scale localized solutions, not like a solution which is bringing from the global level or the other. Global is also important, but we need to provide the global knowledge also in form of the indigenized form, which can be utilized, like phonic sounds. Like we are utilizing the phonic sound to training our children, but we have make that indigenous phonic sound in that. So promote indigenous knowledge in disaster preparedness, use technology to empower the community, and engage women, youth, local people, marginalized group to making their solutions. So this is how I would like to recommend here. Thank you so much. And thank you for this opportunity. And in
Thank you.
case anybody would like to know more about Akshibi, you are most welcome. We can call a separate session for that. So this is my mail ID and phone number. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Divya, for once again highlighting strengthening local capacities and the ways in which we can do that. Next, we have Dr. Asha Hans from Shanta Memorial Rehabilitation Center. Dr. Asha, over to you for your remarks on fostering inclusive disaster risk reduction and resilience for all.
Thank you so much, Michelle. It's a pleasure to be back with Sphere after a number of years, and that disability has found space in this series of webinars. I'm so happy about it. Disability is an issue which has been marginalized for many, many years, but finally, it is the disabled themselves who are coming about and trying to make their. Can I have my the slides? Sorry, the subject that had been given to me was fostering inclusive disaster risk reduction and resilience for all. I knew that where disability is concerned, I should have thought a little bit also about gender, but I'm glad Ruchi spoke about that. Where disability is concerned, see, this is what is happening now in Orissa, where we have a number of cyclones that have been coming, and the whole area had been devastated. So when we are talking about disability, 16% of the world's population lives with disability. That is a large number if you come to think of it. The increase in disasters where I live in the coast of Odisha, have been increasing, and that all of you know, so that's nothing new, but it has been linked with climate change. Climate-induced disaster risk reduction is something that has been part of, it's been part of our life. We have seen this over the years, and disabled people who come and tell us that, that this is happening, that we have never seen things like this, that the work that we are doing has been hampered so much in the last few years. So disasters and climate change events but they have a differential impact upon those who are marginalized, who are excluded, like women and persons with disabilities. A person with a disability, they're not a homogeneous group. We call them persons with disabilities, but they could be blind, they could be deaf, they could be cerebral palsy, and they would all have different kind of needs. That is something that we have to understand. But they understand. Take, for example, some of the interviews that we did for Harvard University recently. And he said that you would find that when it rains for a long time, then we have floods and crops are destroyed. And the same happens when we have long periods of droughts. Now, when I narrow it to people with disability, you will find that we are greatly affected because in most cases, the economic activities that we engage in, we tend not to be diverse, and that is why we take a long to switch with climatic pattern. So in the long run, we are all affected. So they have started to, when you say that disabled people don't understand, many people will tell you that they do understand. And this is someone from the rural areas. So when you do homogenizing people and you cluster them into marginalized group, it creates exclusion. You can provide something for blind and then you find that the deaf don't have what is needed. But one of the major intersectionalities that I have worked, and most of my work has been with gender and women with disabilities. And for the last, since 2015, I've been working on climate change and gender. And for the last 5 years on women with disabilities. And hopefully you'll find a new book coming soon on that. One of the things that happens and which impacts women with disabilities is the migration that is taking place because of the flooding, because of the large number of disasters that are taking place, villages after villages disappearing. There have been many villages on the coast of Orissa which have disappeared. They no longer exist. So if we say that climate change does not exist, we have to go to these people. These are the disabled people we talked to, and they said that they are vulnerable largely due to the, not only because of the rain, not because of the climate change, but because of the inequalities and their exclusion from adaptation and mitigation efforts. That is why when I speak to a crowd like you who are making those laws, who are implementing these laws, you will, I hope, listen to these voices. It's not, you have to remember that what Ruchi talked earlier, that where women are concerned, you have patriarchy, you have poverty, you have high vulnerability, violence. You don't even have a decision making. So where women and disabilities are concerned, it is a bad situation. We don't use climate justice, which recognizes that climate change, human rights, and development are linked. And if we need the Paris Agreement to come forward, to be used, then we have to recognize that even the Paris Agreement in 2015 recognized persons with disabilities. Where DRR and climate change is concerned, disability is inclusion in both of them but what we see across the globe, not only in India, but across the globe, not only in Odisha, that no one uses a right-based perspective. So in general, they're still excluded from discussions from the climate-related policy. I go to the COPs, I go to the, was in Paris, we tried our best to put disability in. You will see people counting words. Paris Agreement has 7 words on disabilities. The next agreement will have 10 words, so we are still stuck at words. We don't go beyond that. Now, where DRR and climate change is concerned in relation to resilience, DRR is about reducing risks. We have to reduce the risks for a person with disability, a person who cannot walk, a person who is in a house which is flooded and there's no early warning system to take care of him. He does not know what is happening. The radios, the television will not provide them accessible information. There will be nothing written which a blind can read. There will be nothing where a deaf person is concerned. So you have to, but if you reduce this risk, you are equipping them to face both climate change and disasters. Building resilience among persons with disabilities in the face of climate change is not a responsibility. It is an opportunity. And that opportunity, because you have so many people more, and I'll explain why they are important to us, not only to themselves, but to us. Another person coming out from the voices from here and which feeds into what I was just saying is that this is the answer. Why do we include persons with disabilities? People with disabilities have a lot of resilience because we were born like this and found our elders living in bad situations. People with disabilities were never recognized in our community until recently, when we have been trying to get education and increasing awareness on our rights. But we are now able to air out our problems, not as those who grew before us. Many of us have in the past persevered with bad situation, but many are able to air out concerns and be heard. When you hear those voices, you know that these are voices whom we must follow because they have learned out of adversity. If we learn from adversity, we know what the worst are feeling, and they provide us the answers to how we can overcome where disaster risk reduction and climate change are concerned and create a system of resilience. Most of you talked about adaptation, but adaptation for climate change and for women and persons with disabilities is a little different, because you have to have not only climate resilient adaptation, but you also have to have a disability inclusive adaptation. You cannot give disabled people the same kind of adaptation services that others are. If you have a cyclone shelter, the cyclone shelter has to be inclusive. It has to have not only ramps, it also must have braille. If you are doing some kind of alternative livelihood, you have to see that it is also possible for the blind, for the deaf, for those with intellectual disability who need easy reading, that they can do it. We have tried with people to plant in a mangrove plantation, and it has worked out well. So whenever we do adaptation, we have to think of inclusive of everyone, leave no one behind, have all those people who are there to be included. This is a relocation colony that was set up by the government of Odisha in Bagpatia, one of the first relocation colonies from climate change. And there are persons with disabilities who are living there, some of them, but very few. Women with disabilities did not get any house because they were never heads of household, and the buildings were not inclusive because they were not accessible. Though there are no staircases here, but the doors are narrow, the bathrooms are even narrower. But they did try to make, some of them tried to make through the Narega funds that were available, made their own housing and kitchen gardens where there has been this kind of adaptation has worked. In conclusion, I would say that recognition that adaptation to climate change is not a hazard, but it is about the well-being of the people, and giving people the opportunity to speak, giving them the capacity so that they can come about and speak. Think of a woman with an intellectual disability or a woman who has a psychosocial disability. She's afraid of you. She's not going to come forward. Then how do you bring her in? How do you provide her that space that is inclusive, a space that she understands? We have to recognize that resilience is about rights. It's about equality. It is being able to do things and to be provided a platform to speak. So whenever we talk about DRR and climate change, we have to give those platforms where these women and men with disabilities have a place to speak, a place where voice and agency is there, and the dissemination of information that they get is accessible, that you can read. If you're a blind person, if you're a deaf, you can hear the early warning system that there are on the television. We've been trying that for a long, long time, and it's still not, we are very, very lagging far behind. So I hope that when you think about, we all think about inclusion in DRR and climate change, it is not only excluding that we are excluding people, so we must include them. We have to recognize them as stakeholders and not just passive recipients of aid. Many times, most of them don't even get. In the Bagpatia colony, women with disability was completely out of the planning process, or none of them had a house. So you can see the national guidelines on disability for some of the example that I'm giving that should be taken up by Sphere. I've worked with Sphere for a number of years, and I'm glad that you are including disability. And I hope that the document that will come out will also be as inclusive as possible, both to gender and disability. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Dr. Asha, for highlighting the heterogeneity when it comes to people with disabilities and how we can incorporate disability inclusive disaster and climate resilience. Next, we have Mr. Mihir Bhatt from All India Disaster Mitigation Institute. Mr. Mihir, over to you for your remarks on today's session on future visioning and strategic planning for 2047.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to um, be part of Sphere India's work. Congratulations to Sphere India for the Sphere India Day. And I very much look forward to the exercise that you have started. I've been requested to look at future visioning, and I'm going to build on what the panelists have said so far, including the NDMA chair, Rajendra Singh ji. What I propose to do is obviously not repeat all the points that you have said. They are very important. And what I have been doing is to taking note of them and saying that what is the future visioning coming out of each of the points, and 6 or 7 visioning points that are coming out. And I would talk about that. I thought maybe I'm encouraged to, having listened to your points, to be more ambitious. And so let us have more ambitious future visioning, which is not more ambitious, far more ambitious future visioning. And not only that we that become in 2047 India a world leader in disaster risk reduction, but at least it becomes one of the important sources of strength and support. And with that kind of ambitious future visioning, I want to make the points that I've drawn from the presentation that are made here. First point that I understand is that we want the future actions from between now and 2047 to be next 25 years to be at the intersection of humanitarian action, disaster risk reduction, climate change, and sustainable development. So essentially what we are saying is that sectoral or siloed actions will not help us go where we want to go. And that's something came out for me from everybody's presentation. Therefore, it's not possible to have a 30 trillion economy that we plan to have in 2047 without being at the intersection of all 4. We can't have 20,000 per capita income that we plan to have in 2047 for every Indian without having focusing on the intersection. If we focus on one of the 4 or 2 or 3 of the 4s, we will not be able to do that. Other thing I want to make, and that comes out from the presentations that are made here so far, so well, and that is that we need to reduce the production of risk that our economy, our way of development, our way of living is causing, and reduce it, slow down these risks, in fact, stop some of this risk, and where possible, reverse these risks. So in 1947, we don't want to have far more risk, far more hazards, and then respond to them. But actual effort between now and 2047 is to reverse the process so that we don't respond to risk, but we actually produce less risk. That's a major visioning change that I see coming out from the presentations that are here. Second major point that is coming out and which should make us ambitious is that, and every panel member has said so, that we don't want only localization, though that is important and everybody hinted at that, directly mentioned that. But what we want is actually a bottom-up processes. In more concrete terms, we of course want stronger NDMA, but what we want in 2047, that each district disaster management authority is even stronger and far more resourced and far more active in responding to disasters than the national authority is. In other words, we don't want every city to have a heat action plan and very well implemented and even better implemented and even better implemented. But we want every city to actually reverse the process which has led it to be a heat hotspot. And actually every city becomes by 2047 a cool spot. So we may end up having 1 million cool spots in India in 2047, and that's the ambition that we have, and not that every city is prepared for action for extreme heat. The third point I see that is coming out for visioning purpose is, and it was repeatedly mentioned at least by two panel members directly, is the last mile. That we address that, and I would suggest that we actually be even more ambitious and not address the last mile, but the last mile becomes the first mile for any intervention, may it be data science, may it be digitalization, may be it use of drones, for example, new skills, for example. Any new initiative between now and 2047 should first happen, first make the last mile first mile and make the rest of the miles reverse. So basically reverse what we have been saying so far. The fourth point that I'm drawing from the presentations that are here, sorry, fifth, and I would want us to be more ambitious, is the last person. And we've talked about women, we've talked about disabled people, we've talked about other groups. I would like to say that that last person should be the first person that we respond to, especially within that so-called last person, which we want by 2047 will be the first respondent, should be the Dalits. The first respondent should be the female farmers, for example. The first respondents would be, for example, minorities. The first respondents would be, for example, the migrant workers. So those which are the last person and we want to reach them, actually they should be reaching us, the rest of the society. So we have enough skills for them, enough resources for them, enough support from them, legal structure for them by 2047, so that they become the first person. The sixth visioning change I would like to suggest, and which is coming out from the presentations here, and that is that and I'm combining that with the overall Bharat 2047 Amrit Kal plan that we have, Niti Aayog, and I hope I'm suggesting the vision based on the presentations here that all this process will not be expert driven, but would be driven by the youth, as the Niti Aayog document clearly says. So Indian youth will be the risk reducer, resilience builders. Indian youth in 2047. Similarly, Mahila, that is women, would be, and that point has been made very well and must be underlined again. Farmers and the poor. So youth, Mahila, Annadata, as it is said in the document, and the poor, Garib. And these four would be at the forefront of keeping us protected, keeping us secure, and acting as the protection to any disaster risk and other climate risks that we may be facing in 2047, or which we may actually not be facing because we would have reduced the production of those risks. So in end, I would like to conclude by saying that the vision is, ambitious vision is, not only that we want a Viksit Bharat, which of course we all want, but we want Viksit Bharatiya. So each Indian is Viksit, and same applies that not only we have Surakshit Bharat, protected from disaster risk, climate risk, but we want Surakshit Bharatiya. So every Indian man, woman, disabled, minorities, Dalits, every Indian is Surakshit. You know, this may sound very ambitious, and people may say that this doesn't go in the direction the rest of the country is going, but I don't think Sphere India and the members who are here should be worried about that. because I distinctly remember 25 years ago, sphere was a very new idea. It was something impossible to have a uniform standards for relief. How could you possibly have that? It's just cannot be done. And here we are, we have not only the standards, but we have actually implemented them, and we have a whole network here thriving and doing. So I think it's possible to have ambitious goals for 2047 and actually realize them in the coming decades. So, and the only way that could be done that is if we get over with the colonial mindset about thinking about disaster and resilience in only a certain way. We take more pride in our roots, our people, our knowledge systems. I'm not saying false pride, and I'm not saying that we disregard other people's work and achievements, but definitely be rooted in our own traditions and our own ways of doing whatever is useful and actually applicable. And if we are united with unity, this ambitious program is possible. And if we focus more on duty, doing what we are supposed to be doing, than focusing too much on demanding what others should be doing, such as the structures and institutions and authorities. So I think with duty, unity, pride, and Indian mindset, it's possible to actually make India not only as the country is proudly saying Vishwa Bandhu, but actually Vishwa Surakshak, that we are one of the important protectors of the world by reducing our own risk, by being resilient ourselves, and by that token, making the rest of the world, rest of the humanity far more protected. Thank you so much for giving me this chance to talk about the visioning that Sphere India, its members with the National Disaster Management Authority is trying to do. And AIDMI will be very happy to be part of that in any which way it's possible. In fact, I had a detailed 7-point speech about the issues that I was going to raise in terms of concrete actions. And I haven't said that, which was based on the research that AIDMI has done in the recent past. That's always available. But I thought I will build on the presentations that the panel members had did and make make all of us far more ambitious about what we want to achieve in 2047 than we would be otherwise doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mihir, for beautifully summing up our visioning exercise today. I would like to invite Mr. Vikrant Mahajan, CEO Sphere India, for his closing remarks.
Thank you so much, Michelle. And thank you to all the distinguished speakers. I think it's been great catching up with all of you and listening to your views. A great exercise, looking at the visioning 2047. I think this journey of Sphere India, I think if we looking back today, it's 23 years. We entered into a 23rd year, and that thing is with leaps and bounds. How we are from where we started and how and where we are as a collective. It's been full of many achievements, many learnings in the process. At the same time, but it's the time also when we are passing through actually as a sector, we are passing through a very challenging and a dynamic changing humanitarian landscape in India. At the same time, what we're looking at is also the uh, the the need to have a focus more on DRR, climate, and integrating it with the development. The entire disaster development conundrum, I think, and the Nexus approach has perhaps become more and more relevant. And that's where doing this kind of a visioning exercise with all stakeholders together, looking at the future challenges is also becoming more important. Now, if I reflected in terms of saying that what are the challenges which we are going to the sector, is that some of the best institutional capacities which we have, with which probably we started 23 years back, and but we have seen during the first decade of Sphere India, most of those capacities have declined to its minimal. I'm talking about the presence of a big international NGO system which was there uh, in India, and with that capacity, of course, was coming up a layered partnership mode as a local organization and local capacities. So that has really been more on a decline. The international financing which was there, and the financing options which used to be there, the sector around which the entire mobilization of the Sphere India used to happen, and that is in the decades of the first 2 decades up to 2015, 16, I think is that's also have almost come to the nil. Uh, However, on the other side of it is there's been a big thrust towards the localization. We have really realized how more and more local actors could be, come not just from the mainstream, but now take the leadership role. And also in terms of a resource finding, we're looking at how more local resources can be mobilized and look at the more Indian resources coming up. The CSR has become a big movement and a big sport into it. The partnership and relationship with the government have also taken up and down in this course of time, but there's new partnership and new opportunities coming up as collective with the government. So this is how we see the challenges. But when looking at challenges, yes, in view of that, the sectoral leadership, which we have largely dependent more on the big system, is yet to be replaced, right? So in terms of seeing that who are the players in India where we look at a leadership for the wash, and how we see the continuum of the conventional wash ways of working, and what we are going to look at a change for the future. So similarly going for the other sectors, probably we need to see this transition where the more local actors. This is also time which is opportunities available for the technical actors and then who can take that space and are able to exercise a leadership, whether it is collaborating with the government ministries in that space, both at the center and the state level, or also developing, or also able to assert their technical know-how during the time of crisis, disasters, and all. So this shift and this change is actually challenging and dynamic, which is we going through, and it's how we are managing and coping with this as a Sphere India is not just a matter of Sphere India Secretariat anymore, wherein we are trying to see, and the expectation is coming probably Spain Secretariat to exercise more leadership for the sectoral domains. But I think we simultaneously should look at how more local players and local champions in these sectors who can co-share and take this lead along with the sectors in the interim time in the next 4 to 5 year landscape. But in time to come, they actually are able to lead the entire sector. I think that's probably is a desired change, and that's where we all need to move towards when we're looking at the visioning of a humanitarian collaborative. I think this was most of the other points have already been touched by the other speakers, but I think listening me from my side, I think this is one thing which I wanted to emphasize. And a couple of more information I think is I can share is it's good time when we are looking at the revisioning of the sectoral coordination guidelines. We are also looking at the revision of the national standards, maybe also integrating, taking some of the good practices which we have developed over a period of time, like this joint rapid need assessment. We see that how it gets institutionalized in the government system, and there's openness about that. There's discussions are almost in an advanced stage, and partnerships have got into place. So I see that some of these things to happen in the immediate times, but gradually how we see this as a collaborative, keep evolving to look at the vision 2047 and keep seeing the future challenges toward which we are able to address, take our secretarial capacity as well as our collaborative capacities to meeting those demands, as well as addressing the changes which are coming in the system, is something which we have to stay conscious and moving forward. So these are some of the top line ideas from me, and I think I once again take the opportunity to thank all of you for your support, and also I think it's also my team, Sphere India Secretariat. I think the team have been at the backbone of keeping everybody together. I give my thanks to the chair, Dr. Bhanu, and everybody around here and who joined today for making this a very useful and a very learning session. And with this, I hand it back to you, Michelle. Please continue.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you once again to all the panelists and participants who have made this a wonderful consultation in terms of this visioning exercise that we had planned. We hear all your suggestions, we hear all your inputs on how anticipatory, inclusive, and integrated risk reduction and resilience on the intersections of development, humanitarian action, disaster, and climate resilience is something that we are aiming towards. And we will incorporate all of these inputs in our long-term visioning and strategy framework. And we'll work on these suggestions we have received as part of and as part of all our consultative sessions to integrate these priorities within our activities as a network. And we'll continue engaging with all of you on these cross-cutting themes. And we look forward to your continued guidance and support for our work. So we'll document all of these inputs, and we will be sharing this with all the panelists and participants as well for your inputs. So thank you once again to all the panelists for joining us today, and the participants. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.